Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, just because we can do something doesn't mean we should. Side opposition fails their burden because, sure, they might be spending 5% today, but that significant increase may mean 7%, 8%, 10%. I don't necessarily know. And as an average reasonable person or ordinary intelligent voter, if you take a look at what that 5% has done, I think it hasn't changed much. And in fact, even if they continue to spend that money, it can significantly make things worse. There are 3 pushes from side proposition to win this debate. Number 1, an examination of the opportunity cost of the increased funding for the military versus the comparative of that money being able to be spent domestically to be able to support the individual countries as well as the European Union in general. Number 2, increased aggression against border conflicts among rogue states as well as inciting Russia and maybe potentially picking an enemy against the United States and against China. Because we also have to understand, and this also comes from Ryan Lafferty, who controls a lot of the world's AI and military grade technology. My brothers in Christ, it's the United States of America. That is to say, they significantly have a first mover advantage and economies of scale to already be ahead of the curve, even against China. That is to say, your 5% isn't just working today, but the point in which you significantly increase that to 7, 8, 10, even 20% is the point in which you're unlikely to be able to yield that result because they have no incentive to be able to give you a discount or a bargain to be able to get their technologies, bro. Because America wants to continue having hegemonic power, and we think that even if Europe attempts to do this outside the United States, maybe going to China, maybe trying to go to any other ally, is ultimately futile and a waste of resources. The third push is being able to talk about how putting a target on your back undermines the diplomatic efforts and solidarity that the European Union as a collective stands for, and something that will impede the ability of them to broker peace and negotiation in the future. Sure, my friend, I'll take the point of information.
So sounds very clear. You have no other alternative because you are already in a state of war. You are already vulnerable to attacks, for example. It's a matter of how you're able to protect yourself from it.
That's a false dichotomy, bro. Just because someone puts a gun to your head doesn't mean you have to bring out a bigger gun. If your decision to do that is based on the idea of mutually assured destruction, we need to characterize the rogue nature of Russia as well as the selfish nature of the United States to want to be able to get in power. That is to say, given a lot of the currency instability that we already see facing the euro and even other adjacent currencies that these nations are facing, will continue to sink their domestic economy into more turmoil. You need to take a look at the average person in that European country. Not all of these people support it. In fact, the vast majority of people, because of what they've seen with Russia and Ukraine over the past 3, 4, 5 years, is proof of concept that more aggression does make things worse and wrecks your economy. I have a few responses to the leader of the opposition to also bolster our comparative and positive material. The first is, they talked about, bro, 5% is good, we're doing it already, it's fine. That's an assertion. They need to be able to prove that 5% is justified, but they also have to prove their burden of why increasing that significantly more will be better or have a marginal impact on their side. I have 4 responses to this. A, this destabilizes the currency of the euro and other nations at the point in which you're likely to be able to get into debt or structure long-term bonds in order to be able to fund it. That puts a huge repayment cost for them to pay it back even in the long run. B, it weakens the domestic capacity to be able to do what Europe does best. Make sports cars. Make manufacturing and other cool things that they rather import or even export to the rest of the world and not go into a race to the bottom when they try and militarize, which, as I mentioned in my pre-oration, is something that America has full control over in terms of their operations and supply chain. C, they significantly will get less support from people on the ground because young men who are conscripted to be able to fight war have seen what happened in Russia and Ukraine. They don't want to die. They don't want to be in a war of attrition away from their families. These people want to be able to earn a living and have enough money to be able to heat their fucking homes and not worry about the cost of oil significantly inflating, which is likely to happen at the point in which you try and hard lock into these things. It becomes largely inflationary and puts so much pressure on their domestic economy. D, I think it's also an assertion to assume that Europe as a continent and as individual nation states are like monolithic. Bro, maybe 5% doesn't matter to the rich guys. Germany, France, Italy. But if you expect other nation states like Bosnia, Serbia, Macedonia, and significantly a lot of other countries also facing domestic problems at home, given border conflicts, refugee crises, and migrants, ladies and gentlemen, you significantly pressure those particular people to go into debt or spend money they otherwise do not have, which significantly puts pressure not just on their government, but also the average people trying to be able to make a living as a middle-class person, trying to be able to make ends meet. Ladies and gentlemen, just because we have done something and they're currently doing it now doesn't mean we have to tilt and go all into this strategy. This debate is uniquely a comparison of strategies in terms of resource allocation, in terms of whether or not we want to spend more cents on the euro trying to be able to fund this war, because I think side proposition hasn't really proved to us an upside. At best, they prove that, yo, bruh, we're doing it. It's chill. It's fine. I think they need to be able to defend why exactly this is going to be successful and why exactly it's not going to be adversarial to the enemies we have. And for all of these reasons, we are very proud to stand firm on side proposition. Is that good?
Galing ang yellow.
Pwede pa help later with stuff.
Hi, give me a few seconds.